But let's just stick to the roles, just as a final question.
Yeah.
For the CIOs, becoming chief operating officers, radically changing, CIO by proxy, being held accountable for digital business operational results. Do you foresee that kind of thing happening?
I think it already is. So if, for example, you are, a relatively new organization, one that's maybe started in the last, 5 or 10 years, in other words, the sorts of organizations that were either termed as having been born on the web or born in the cloud, by definition, their operations environment is almost all technology based. So it's actually not unreasonable, and it certainly is the case that there are CIOs that, to all intents and purposes, are the chief operating officers, of those companies, because there may be, relatively little in terms of manufacturing plants or employee base or complex accounting systems and so on and so forth. So I think that's already happening, and it always used to be the case that the position of the CIO in the organization structure was always a demonstration of how seriously or otherwise the board of that company took the role of IT. So in other words, if you see a CIO and they report into a CFO, it's reasonable to say that that particular organization on the whole sees IT as a cost center. Now, that's not to say that they're not valuable, quite the opposite, but the predominant view in the organization is they're there to fulfill a function, and it's largely a cost function. There are other CIOs that report into COOs, and there are other CIOs that report directly to the board. And so I think it really depends on the organization, the age of the organization, the type of organization, the sorts of things that they do, the size, so all of those sort of come together. But generally speaking, newer organizations will have, a much more important role in terms of how they've ascribed the value of technology to the business, and therefore, have a CIO who's, much more akin to a COO. Larger, more traditional organizations will have a CIO that's, perhaps a little bit further down in the organization. But I think the overall trend, like we've discussed already, is that so technology has become much more visible. Its value has become much more obvious, and therefore the people that are in the technology space in those companies, I think, have the opportunity to become much more strategically relevant to, not just the board, but the organization in general.